So tonight our guest is Shannon Herber, and in case you are not familiar with her work, she has a vast background in the music business, working in artist management. She's worked as the tour manager for the artist Moby. She was the head of the dance music division and the recording academy, and she's now the managing director for Steve Aoki's project, the Aokiverse. She's also an advocate for Web3 and Metaverse ventures and new platforms for artists. Um, if there's anything that you would like to add to that. uh,
Yeah, I'll just give you a little bit of background. So I have lived in LA for 21 years. I started working in the music industry pretty much as soon as I got here. And my first big job in the industry was as a publicist. So I worked as a publicist at Universal Music for quite a few years, and then did some live production out here in LA because that's really big because we've got all the award shows. And then, yeah, started working with Moby and was his director of operations and tour manager for him for quite a few years. And then after that, moved over to the Recording Academy, which most people know as the Grammys. And so I was the head of the pop and dance electronic music categories at the Grammys. And so now, after doing that for about 7 years, now I work for, as you pointed out, Steve Aoki and his NFT project and sort of Web3 ecosystem. And it is called Aokiverse, which we hope to expand in 2023.
so for those who, I think most people who are interested in electronic music know who Steve Aoki is. But can you tell us a little bit more about what the Aokiverse project is and how it came about and how you got involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got involved because it's brand new, right? Everyone that's working in Web3, if maybe they had been investing in crypto before and that was kind of how they got into it, or what I heard more often is, to your point, working in the electronic music industry, most artists who are who work in electronic music tend to be very forward thinking, and they rely on technology to not just create their art, but also to help them connect to the world. And so as soon as something happens like NFTs or, a way to connect to the world through a different technology, then those folks tend to be the forward users of that. And so I started to see that that was happening more and more. Obviously people like RAC and Blau and Steve were all jumping on it. And then I started to see some more individual artists like Latasha and Verite and Nadia from Pussy Riot start to kind of jump into this space. And so I thought, oh, this is really interesting. And because of my background working at the Grammys, I knew Steve's manager, and he had said, we're building an ecosystem. The idea of it being called Aokiverse is less about the metaverse and more about the universe of Steve Aoki in general, right? So that could be anything from the fact that he owns a record label called Dimac Records, that he owns a streetwear company, Dimac Collection, the fact that he's a co-owner in MetaZoo, an online trading company. He dabbles in a lot of streetwear, a lot of games, a lot of collectibles. And so this seemed like a really authentic way for him to jump into the space, right? And he's always been very forward thinking, so this was super easy for him. So the way that we utilize Aokiverse is that it's more of a membership club, right? The NFT for us isn't a music NFT the way that it might be for Blau or RIC. It's not royal. We're not giving away royalty streams with each of these NFTs. Essentially, it's a passport. We call them passports. There's multiple levels that you can sort of buy into, right? And then they give you varying degrees of rewards that all come from Steve's ecosystem. So if he, just recently did a partnership deal with DraftKings, and so he's helping them, and then they're also giving us some benefits and rewards to give back to our company, things like that. So it is more along the lines of a very intimate membership club. And this way allows you to, for an artist, right, allows them to really have a one-on-one conversation with the fans. Because I think in sort of Web 2, it was an artist has a product and then it goes through the label or the manager, or, you know, if it's a show, then it goes through the promoter and the ticket seller. So there's a lot of sort of middle ground and middlemen in the middle to, you know, facilitate the connection, right? But you don't really have that continual conversation. Whereas with these, because we have a Discord, because these folks have obviously bought into it by buying the NFT, it definitely becomes a one-on-one conversation where they could give us instantaneous feedback. So if we give out a reward that's super popular, then great, we hear about it and we can make a mental note and say, okay, you know, we want to build off of that in the future. If we give out a reward that no one likes or there's no utility to really, then we hear about that as well, and then we can pivot. And so, you know, that's what I really like, is that it's a new technology that really allows for artists to have more of a hand in their actual community and builds off of the 1,000 true fans model. So you can still create a revenue stream off of a lot of people, you know, who are dedicated to you, but they don't have to be millions and millions of people. So you don't have to be a superstar to do it. So.
Right. And so I'll get to my next questions about sort of all of the discussion happening about NFTs and the metaverse and everything else. But how long has the platform been active, and how is it going as far as membership and fan engagement?
Yeah. So let's see, the ecosystem launched in February of this year. I think end of it, I want to say like February 22nd. And I joined first week of March. So as soon as it, you know, was up and running, then I joined to start to manage it, to help create the community, to help you know, do the customer service of it, and then also manage on the back end sort of all of our let's say operations and, you know, personnel hiring and things like that. You know, I think a lot of artists don't know or realize that when you do something like this, it's really exciting, but it also is a heavy lift operationally, because as of right now, the mentality has been lifetime utility. So that means that you are having to continually, you know, discuss with your fans. And so you have to always be involved in the Discord. You have to always be dropping new utility. You know, you might have put out a merch drop a couple of weeks ago, and then people are like, okay, where's my merch? You know, and you have to continue to talk to them about that. And so there is some element of ownership, let's say, by the community, which means that they are going to be a little more interested in what you're doing on a daily basis. But I'd say it's going really well. We have about 12,000 people who have signed up for the Discord. We have about 3,700 who are super active. The floor price for our NFTs doesn't really move that much. I mean, we've seen swings, you know, basically from maybe 0.1 to 0.23 if we're giving away a big utility. Also, you know, we're beholden to the market, same as anybody. So after FTX imploded, we've all seen floor prices on many NFTs go down. So, you know, I don't really consider that to be a referendum on us so much as it just is crypto's having a moment. But yeah, I mean, everyone seems really happy with it. I know it's been really interesting for me to get to know communities this way. So yeah, I'm definitely excited to see what we can do for 2023.
Nice. Yeah, this the the crypto world hasn't been very stable, especially in this last half year, and I think that's not really helpful towards pushing towards this new
Yeah,
platform.
yeah, for
So
sure. It's been,
moving, yeah, into the next part. So, I mean, we're talking about the metaverse and NFTs. Um, both of those things. are getting a pretty bad reputation right now. And I think part of that is that maybe a lot of people are confusing the metaverse with Meta, the company,
Mhm.
and they think it's only a Facebook thing, so they don't want to get involved. Or, NFTs. NFTs are such a great idea for artists that want to be able to, sell directly to fans. But of course, much like crypto, I think people have gotten the wrong ideas. Instead of being this decentralized currency, they think it's now a way that they can get rich, and that's not the idea. So, uh, how do you believe that these new platforms, the metaverse, NFTs, is really the next step for artists to be able to connect with their fans and to be able to have a new space in order to engage?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and these are great questions because I'm hearing them a lot. I just did a conference out here in LA on Monday, and the very first question was, with all the things that are going on in the crypto market right now, why should we still be having this conversation? And, one of the things that I say to folks is that technology is kind of like Pandora's box. Once it's out there and people know that you can utilize it in a certain way, it never really goes back in the box, right? Like nobody's going to say, oh, now that we figured out how to, create these digital collectibles, and we figured out a way for artists to connect with fans and sell their own, products directly to the fan without a middleman involved, and a way for an up and coming musician to possibly make 20 to 30 grand, let's say, that they don't have to then give back to a record label with their sales, something like that. So it becomes an unrecoupable advance, so to speak. Now that we've seen that technology is out and available, I don't think it's going to go away. And so that just means that we're in the early days sort of streaming. If you think about streaming, which changed the music landscape, Spotify came out in like 2007, 2006, 2007. But it didn't really hit mass adoption, and we didn't really see Amazon Music and TuneCore and Pandora and all of those things really start to happen until around 2009, 2010. So we just haven't gotten there yet, I think, as a new technology, right? We haven't found that killer app that's going to sort of help everyone, because unfortunately we're at the place where those of us who understand how to create a MetaMask wallet and maybe have had some crypto in the past, right? Those of us who were early adopters have gotten to a place where, oh, now we're super excited about it. We see the utility for everyone else. We see the utility to bring this in for creators, particularly musicians. And so now we just have to figure out how to sort of put all of that crypto under the hood, and then just bring people onto a platform that's maybe custodial wallets. So maybe they don't even know that they have an NFT, but what they're joining is a digital collectible membership club for their favorite band, right? That people will always be interested in. So when we've actually been talking to other artists, and one of them had said, oh yeah, we did a survey with our fans, and when we said, hey, are you interested in NFTs, do you think that we as a band should get into NFTs, it was like 65% of their fans said no. But when you say, hey, how do you feel about digital collectibles, are you interested in that, do you think we should get involved in that in some way, you get a 65% yes. So, it's just reframing the question and then reframing how people understand what they're getting. And also, I think, again, particularly for musicians, if we start to talk about the technology in terms of, it doesn't even have to be an NFT, maybe it's a POAP. Maybe what you do now is you have the ability, when artists come to your shows, to have them scan a little QR code. It gives them a POAP. It shows that they attended that show. And then after 5, then maybe they get an instant, discount off merch at that show or something like that. But now you as the artist have that data on fans who have attended your shows, multiple times, all those sorts of things. And you can start to reward that type of loyalty. which is a data set we've never had before as, artists. So that's why I think that all of this is really interesting, is we're moving towards this methodology that will also help folks who are disabled. It's going to help geographically isolated folks. It's, I think, going to ultimately help the global South. If you think about artists in places like, let's say, Colombia, where moving physical goods in and out is hard, not just because of customs, but because of all, the drug issues and things like that, then digital collectibles are a way for those artists to be able to start to reach out to communities in other places, to be able to start to sell their art in a way that doesn't require physical goods to be put through customs. So, that's why I say, yes, there are some current technological issues with it, but I don't think that as a methodology for connecting with your audience, I don't think it's going away.
That you bring up a couple of things. So first, well, so one of the issues, one of the big issues now, obviously, that everyone knows about, is that now that everything has pivoted to streaming, obviously artists really can't make any kind of living through streaming unless they have some, crazy mega hit um that gets them
Right.
millions and millions. And then of
So
course, just because you have the streams doesn't mean that Spotify is going to pay you. So
exactly.
so with things the way that they have been for a while, and now there have been more articles recently making the rounds about how difficult touring is getting.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So with all of these issues coming up, I would think that this would be a great way for uh, f- for artists who are at the beginning of their career. Maybe they're just getting to that point where they have those 1,000 followers or those fans, and they can say, okay, I'm going, instead of going on tour, which I really can't afford, and not
Mm-hmm.
making any money, or putting all of my songs onto Spotify and never seeing any money,
Mm-hmm.
you know is should I perform in Altspace? Should I, should I perform in Decentraland or something like that? Should I, have these gigs in the metaverse? Should I take these other steps?
Yeah.
Um, and I think now there's more possibilities coming up, because I know personally, before, doing something like minting NFTs and things are not financially realistic. And also, people who want to be a bit more sustainable
Mm-hmm.
have also, had issues with Bitcoin mining, and how expensive it is to
Absolutely.
do something like NFTs. So with all of these challenges for artists, the way that things are, how can we convince artists to take that next step to get involved in this new platform? And
Yeah.
what should we tell them to convince them that this is what they need to do, and that it would be good for their career or growing their audience?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a couple of things. One is, yes, the environmental impacts are real, but that being said, the recent fork of Ethereum has really brought down gas prices, and I think has made it, more eco-friendly. But even on top of that, you don't have to choose Ethereum as a blockchain, right? If you want to do something else, like most POAPs, right? Which, for those who don't know, they're essentially proof of attendance. Those are static, NFTs that often are on Polygon. Polygon doesn't cost very much. I think as a blockchain right now, it's about 89 cents. And, it has very little environmental impact. So, most non-static, or I'm sorry, most static NFTs that are, being given out like a POAP or something like that, they are being minted on Polygon. And I think we're starting to see more activity on that chain. There are large platforms like OneOf that are working with very large artists, but they're working on blockchains like Tezos. So, there are lots of options, I think. So to that aspect, I would just say you're not locked into any, you're not locked into one blockchain at the moment. There are lots of options. And if you find one that you think works for you, is more within your budget, and also works better for your fans, feel free to choose that one, right? Because we haven't reached mass adoption. So you'll most likely be onboarding most of your fans in the first place. It's not like you're saying, oh, you have to get a second wallet because now we're doing this on Solana. That could be the case for a few of your fans, but most likely you'll be introducing them to this idea for the first time. So choose whatever blockchain you want. And then secondly, this idea of decentralization, I think, is really important. If you don't like Twitter because of the upheaval it's going through, because you don't want to be attached to Elon, but you have a lot of fans on that platform and you've built up a community already, where do you go, right? Because to your point, Instagram is part of Meta. So it's essentially the same thing. So, that's, I think, what a lot of companies are working on right now. Like there's a great company out there called Medallion that's working on decentralizing this whole idea of a fan club or a membership community. And so that an artist will be able to join Medallion and then say, okay, I'm going to import all of my fans from Instagram, from Twitter, from TikTok, wherever, to this one place. And that data is now owned by the fan, right? All that interaction is owned by the fan. Medallion just facilitates it. But ultimately, it's always going to belong to the artist. And so I think that's also part of what's important, is that this is a mentality shift from a platform owning the data and sort of having the ability to do whatever they want with it. Like if Instagram changes their algorithm and you no longer show up in people's feeds, that's a problem, right? Whereas you wouldn't have that with one of these other platforms that are being developed. You wouldn't have that. We don't have that right now because we use Discord. And so if we were to be able to take all of Steve's fans from Twitter, from Instagram, put them on Discord, which not everybody loves Discord. I certainly don't love Discord as a platform, but the point is that we would then be able to connect with all of those people individually. And if they all bought passports, then we have methods of connecting with them and ways of communicating with them that don't involve another platform that, if they change an algorithm, then we then lose. So I think that's why people should start to get involved. I also would say, it's not necessarily right for everyone, but there's a place for everyone. So if you wanted to be like a Daniel Allen and spend 8 hours a day on your Twitter, on your Discord, creating a really strong fan base, not very large, but a very strong one, that when you drop, a digital collectible, almost everyone buys it. And then you've made, I think he made like $150,000, which, is not going to make him rich for the rest of his life. But what it shows is that he has a dedicated fan base. It allows him to grow. It allows him to now create. To your point, it allows him hopefully to potentially tour a little bit. And so it gives him that sort of middle-class stature as an artist to say, okay, I have proof of concept here. And the labels, unfortunately, are not going away, right? Like you still need that higher level to really blow your career up. So I think you can both start on a Web3 level and help propel your career that way. And then once you've gotten recognition, because Daniel Allen now has had multiple articles in Billboard and Variety and all those sorts of things about what he's done. And so he's been able to leverage that Web3 success into a record deal and actual mainstream success. So I think that's also one of the ideas, is that people can start to look at this as a additional lever to build their careers, as opposed to just, oh, now I'm a Web3 artist. It's another tool in your tool belt.
Yeah, this is I think a lot of people are now becoming aware of what Web3 is. Um, I think it's kind of like when the concept of blockchain was introduced, people were still kind of confused about it. One of the big educators in, especially in the music space, I know Imogen Heap was talking about it, for years and years now,
Oh, she's so
and
forward thinking. Yes, absolutely.
and and I got to work on an experiment that she did in Sweden, where she did kind of that same idea of posting this and say, hey, if you want to buy
Mhm.
into the recording that I'm gonna make here, here's the code. Here's information you put in your Ether wallet, and you get to invest in this
Mhm.
song. And
Right.
ideas like that are so interesting to me because um I get very excited when I see artists taking new approaches to their career, and that's what I always like to pass on to to students or to people who are at the beginning of their career, to say, you know don't just record that EP and
Mhm.
upload it to SoundCloud or to Spotify or something like that. Do something different that's really going to engage in the new area that we are now.
Yeah.
And now with there's a few Web3 streaming areas, and and some startups in the music space and things like that.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
there, I mean, that's the other thing is even with, like you're saying, the crypto market kind of being where it is, for those of us who believe in the possibility and how it connects to artists, everyone is still building. And I know that the word building is, a little bit of a cliche in the Web3 world, like, oh, we're all building. But, lack of a better term, it's actually true. Everyone is creating these companies. And so I think, to your point, you are going to start to see more availability of those companies for smaller artists. And so if they create their EP, then within the next 2 years, there will be a lot of places that they can go to help them start to figure that out in Web3 and create a presence.
Great. I think uh that's been a great conversation. I don't want to keep you because I know you've got to head out in a few minutes.
No worries.
Um,
So,
Unfortunately, we can't take questions because we had
oh,
a
gotcha. Okay.
technical issue.
No worries.
Um, but I think it's been a great conversation, and thank you for joining us on our first stream here.
Yes.
And anybody who wants to get involved, obviously, it's the Aokiverse website. Do you have any other recommendations for musicians or music business people who might be interested in getting into this space?
Yeah, NFT now, I know, is one of the big sort of, NFT news sites, let's call it. But both two of their co-founders, Sam Heisel and Matt Medved, come from the music industry. Matt was a music journalist for a long time, and so I've known them for a while. And they truly believe in both the technology, I think, and its applicability for musicians. And they do a really great job of highlighting use cases and ways that musicians can get into the space in whatever way works for them. And, they have handy little charts that sort of tell you, here are some companies that are doing fan clubs. Here are some companies like, Sound, or Royal or Audius, that are sort of helping people drop NFTs that, to your point, are going to have royalties attached to them. Obviously, there's Royal, which is run by Blau. So, there's a lot of opportunity out there. So the one thing I would say is just start doing your research. And Metaversal for any artists out there. There's a lot of multi-hyphenates, I know. So a lot of musicians who also maybe create their own album art, who also do digital art, those sorts of things. Lots of spaces for that as well. So you can do both. So yeah, just start doing your research, and everyone is so helpful. At least that's been my experience, is that because it's a small community, because we're all trying to onboard people, because we see the future uses of this and how it can benefit artists. Everyone that I've run into in this community has been really helpful. So there are no dumb questions. Like I said, I just started personally in Web3 in March, and it's been a whirlwind, but it's been really interesting. And so, you don't even have to be someone who is super tech savvy to jump in. So yeah, just give it a whirl. And if you want to look at what Aokiverse has to offer, or the way that we've set up our fan club, the way that we've set up our passport system, it's Aokiverse.xyz. That's the website. And any of the passports are available on OpenSea. I think, like I said, the base level passport is 0.06, which probably with ETH dropping is like $100. So, if you just wanted to play around and buy one and see how it goes, that's a pretty low entry point for someone to do that. But also feel free to buy anything on OpenSea that floats your boat.
Well, thank you for your time, and thank you for joining us. And I hope you have a good morning, because we're in the nighttime here. So
Awesome. Thank you, Elena, so much. I really appreciate you asking. And I hope that you and everyone else got, some good info. I hope it's worth it.
Thanks so much. It was really informative.
Fabulous. Fabulous.
All right, Shannon.
Awesome. Enjoy your night.
Bye.
Bye.